Hello friends, it's Kayla. This is the vlog I've been looking most forward to filming for months. I think it's just gonna be banger after banger. This is based on different elements of my personality. All of these books were chosen for me by statistics, and I just think, how can it not go well? You may know I have a channel membership you can join. We do live shows, we do little book clubs, we do reading sprints, plenty of extra content. You help control my channel if you become a bestie, the link's down below. And the group of besties that I have been contributing to this spreadsheet where everybody lists their 20 favorite books of all time. And I have so much data. There were 1,300 people who submitted their books. There were 26,000 books mentioned. There were obviously a lot of repeats. So in total, there are 5,936 unique titles. And today, I'm gonna be reading 5 of them. Here's how I decided which ones. I asked the besties to share info about their age, location, enneagram, zodiac, and then all of their favorite books. So then I could put my information in and read most similarly to other people in those stat groups. I had 100 Canadians on the spreadsheet, and over a third of them had Anne of Green Gables, which totally makes sense. And also this is a good pick because I have this list of the 30 most mentioned books on the entire spreadsheet, and this is in the top 30. It's actually one of only 2 books on the entire 30 that I haven't yet read. For my zodiac sign, I have 2 books that I'm gonna start and see which one I feel like reading, but I created a custom recommendation list for every single zodiac sign. And 2 books that were on Aries list are The Shards and Howl's Moving Castle. The Shards was on the entire spreadsheet only 6 times. 3 of those times were mentioned by Aries. The entire Aries list is some of my favorite books. I'm just excited to see what I think of these. Of course, I have to do a common favorite among Enneagram 8s. The good news is I have so much in common with other Enneagram 8s. All of the favorites of everyone else's are also my favorites, which is kind of bad news because I don't have a very large sample size to choose from already. Type 8s are one of the lesser represented Enneagram numbers. All the books that I haven't already read only have like 2 or 3 mentions. So I'm gonna read the first chapter of 3 things so I really get it right. Next, I grabbed everybody who had a career similar to mine or had elements of my career within their career. So I grabbed graphic designers, people in marketing, social media managers, UX and UI design. The most common book mentioned by that group of people was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. And for the 5th book, I'm not looking at any more stats, I'm just looking at the lists of books. And I found like 50 people with the most in common with me, like 15 of their 20 were books that I also loved. I combined all of their lists and I found their most common favorite, and that is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. Oh, and then I do read one more book, special extra vlog just for besties with 1 extra title in it. And the hint for what it is I read it because I'm a completionist. So that's the plan, and let's get started. Good morning vlog. I feel like I'm channeling my inner Anne of Green Gables with this gingham dress today. I also just got, actually I didn't just get, I got a new camera last year and I haven't used it until today. I had a couple people saying that the sound quality on my camera isn't the best lately. Like that it sounds like there's some white noise or like waves crashing, and I can't really hear it. So let me know if you notice a difference from this one to the other one. For comparison, here is the old one. I know they look the same, but this is the other one. Do you notice a sound difference? Testing, testing. But I'm really excited to be reading this because it's been something like on my radar my entire life. I started it and I had this fear that I've already read it because I've had this moment so many times where I reread a childhood favorite and the nostalgia just immediately comes back and I'm like, I remember literally reading this passage. And I thought that might happen with this one because like there's always a chance that I read it but accidentally forgot and then planned it for a video and then realized I already read it. But no, nothing is familiar in here, but I'm excited to report it's going well and I like it. We have this brother and sister who live together on Prince Edward Island, and they're looking for adoption. Is like a weird thing at this time. It's not so much about helping someone less fortunate. It's not about like making a home for someone. And I'm sure some people still view adoption in that way now as like how much it will provide for you. It's about like they want a boy in the family to help and they want, you know, someone to take care of them in their old age, and so they decide to adopt a boy. They don't care about like where the children are coming from or the lives that they led. They're just like, let's go find a boy and take him and add him to our family. And then accidentally, Anne arrives instead of the boy that they requested. And they pretty quickly get enamored by this girl. She's very talkative. She is just a sunshine person in their life. And they're just traveling to the house at the beginning. And she's like, isn't life so beautiful? And look at this tree and look at this lake. And I can't believe I finally get to have a home. I think they're a little resistant at first, but they warm up to her really quickly. That's been the first 7 chapters. She's just getting used to the family and she's getting comfortable and she's learning like how she's supposed to act. And sometimes she's making mistakes. And it's lovely so far. There's definitely been some outdated language at the beginning, especially about the type of person that they would want to come into their family and who they can trust in the country, etc. I got this from the library because I have no idea if I own a copy of Anne of Green Gables. I don't think that I do, but there's a chance that I have it in like one of those collections. Like I have Little Women and I think there's an Anne of Green Gables that comes with that and like it could be deep in the closet somewhere, but I don't know if I really want to hunt these books down today, especially because I have this one. But if I do have a beautiful edition, I feel like I should go find it. But it is looking intimidating in here, so I might just not. And what's fun about this pick is as soon as I'm done with it, I get to scratch it off from here, which is like the 100 classic books that you're supposed to read in your lifetime. And I haven't scratched anything off since I think last year. What's also fun about this book is it's one of the ones that is represented by like every country, it feels like. I'm reading it because so many Canadians love it, but if we look at the top 30 most mentioned books on the spreadsheet, this is one that appears most on the biggest variety of countries. Like everybody from everywhere has been loving this and putting it on their favorites. So I think that's really fun. I'm curious if any besties are reading it with me this month. I have put forth this as like a reading challenge. I'm not just doing it by myself. I've invited the besties and they have been sharing their TBRs and their progress throughout the month, and they have the cutest little graphics, and I've just loved following along on Discord to see what everybody's been reading. All of the prompts are things related to stats. It's called the Sell Your Soul readathon because it's about, you know, the cells on Google Sheets, and it's all about your soul, like your enneagram and your zodiac and your career and your age. So there's one prompt that is to read something in common with people from your country, reading people's favorites who have the same enneagram as you and zodiac sign. So I think I'm ticking quite a few boxes, but with this first one, it's about the country. It's much later. We're about to head to baseball and I've gotten halfway through Anne of Green Gables. I like it just fine. I probably would have liked it more if I read it as like a teenager. It's very nicely split chapter to chapter. So it reads like little short stories or little lessons, almost as if you don't need to read the chapter before or you don't need to read them in order. It's something that you could just pick up and read a chapter to yourself or to your kid. There's like a lesson or a moral with each one, like Anne messes something up or Marilla messes something up. That's her caretaker, her guardian. And then there's like a punishment and then they get over it and they apologize. It feels like a sitcom. I have found this entire collection. It was all on one shelf together and I was certain that Anne of Green Gables was one of them, but it's not there. And it feels so strange that I'm looking for this specific book that I know was in this collection, but they were all together. And that's the only one that was missing, is the one that I need. I literally gaslit myself. I was like, maybe you were missing one from the collection. Yeah, I think you were missing one from the collection. That must be it. Okay. But then I just spent like 20 minutes scrolling back through my Instagram and looking, it wasn't 20 minutes, trying to find a photo of this collection when I first got it. And I found it. And Anne of Green Gables is the green one, but it's not with these ones. So I need to dig. I have like 10 minutes. So this is apparently what I'm gonna do with my time. All of those matching ones were right here in the back together. I thought I found it. I found it. Hooray. My collection's complete. See you at baseball. Okay, here's my very quick review of Anne of Green Gables while I sit on my stairs and I wait for Liam to get out of the shower. Because I'm taking you to a friend's house immediately after baseball. They won their baseball game, which is huge because this is playoffs. So now they have another game to, you know, see if they can beat the next team. I don't really have a lot of thoughts. I feel like it's the kind of classic read that I definitely understand being somebody's all-time favorite, something they grew up with that means a lot to them. It's just a nice story. It's a palatable story. It's simple, and even Anne herself at one point is like, here's all the things that I've learned. Isn't it interesting that I make all these mistakes and then I learn all these lessons? So the structure continued to be, you know, people making a mistake and people hurting each other's feelings or doing something, and then it all worked out. She ended up going to school and we had a big group of friends. And I think that's the only like imagery I've ever seen from any adaptations is like Anne with all of her friends. So I was wondering in the first third when that was going to come to be, and it did. I've never watched, like, I'm sure maybe now I would watch Anne with an E just to see how everybody's represented. I've never seen anything Anne of Green Gables, but I have watched Emily of New Moon because we only had like 2 channels growing up, and I think that came out when I was like 8 years old. So I definitely watched that on, I know that was on like one of the few networks that existed, like just like the CBC, whatever it was. And it's also one that felt like you didn't have to watch it in order necessarily. It was just kind of every episode existed more independently than I feel like most TV current day is. There was also some a sad moment I wasn't really expecting. We follow Anne for like 5 years, I think, and so she grows into a young woman and gets more comfortable with her looks and also relationships with various people. I can see a little romance budding. I like that the men and the boys in this story really added to Anne's life. It wasn't like the cause of any of her issues. Well, no, it was at first, but it just felt like a good, comfortable representation with a young girl growing into her own and the people who supported her along the way. I don't even know if I really want to rate it. I feel like if I have to say a number, it would be a 4. I almost forgot to do my scratch off. You might be thinking, oh, Kayla's still channeling her inner Anne of Green Gables with those braids. No, in fact, my power went out while I was halfway through curling my hair. So I just had to give up. We had like a citywide blackout for the last 3 hours. The cell towers were down and everything. My fridge is being very loud because it has to, you know, re-cool everything. So Liam and I just left and we went to the driving range, and that's what we've been up to. And now he has to go to work and I'm gonna go to the beach and start a couple books, even though I think it's starting to rain. But first, let's do our scratchy for Anne. Oh, the zoom on this camera is crazy. I am nowhere near completing a full row. I guess the closest I am is the top, but I'm never gonna read the Da Vinci Code. I don't know if I've read Catcher in the Rye. I could see myself reading The Count of Monte Cristo in the next year. I don't know about The Handmaid's Tale, and I don't know if I've ever read The Old Man and the Sea, but it seems like something I would have. Hello? As far as my bingo, with Anne of Green Gables, I successfully completed the country one, like I said. I borrowed that from the library, so I can check that off. It is in the top 30. That one is checked off. And it was one book already on my TBR because I did have that stripey green version. So with one book, we hit 4 prompts. Obviously, you can do the bingo board however you want. If you want to do 1 per prompt, like, that's cool. But that is what I have done, and I will see you when I start the next book. Okay, we're on to the Aries of it all. Now, I know that astrology, zodiac stuff is so silly. I would say I predict that the enneagram would be more accurate than the zodiac sign. I mean, the enneagram test, you're actually answering questions and it's about your personality. And does that translate into books? Maybe. But for zodiac stuff, it's like, it could just be a fluke. Obviously, it's probably just a fluke. So if I love one of these, it might just be a fluke. But I'm going to try out both of them. One seems a lot darker, one seems a lot lighter, one seems more in my wheelhouse than the other, but one's a lot shorter than the other. I'm going to expose myself here. I didn't know Howl's Moving Castle was a book. I had no idea. I know it's an animated movie by Studio Ghibli. I do not watch animated movies. I don't like them. And I always thought it was a movie. And if anyone had ever mentioned it was a book to me at some point in history, I probably assumed it was a graphic novel or a manga or something. So I had no idea until I was researching it that it's just a book. It's just a novel. There are some pictures I'm just now seeing, and I don't know the plot of it. I have like literally no idea. But if I like it, then I will commit to like watching the movie. Because I'm sure my husband loves it, and I'm sure he'd love me to watch it. In the land of Ingery, where 7-league boots and cloaks of invisibility really exist, Sophie Hatter attracts the unwelcome attention of the Witch of the Waste, who puts a curse on her. Determined to make the best of things, Sophie travels to the one place where she might get help, the moving castle which hovers on the nearby hills. But the castle belongs to the dreaded wizard Howl, whose appetite, they say, is satisfied only by the hearts of young girls. Okay, I think there's like a romance. Someone has said something to me about the banter between two people. Are we talking about them? I'm not sure what to think about that, but I'll read the first couple chapters. And then the Shards. This is from the author of American Psycho, which I've obviously heard of. Have I seen the movie? I think probably, but I loved American Psycho 2 more, which is like objectively the worst movie ever, but it has Mila Kunis, who I loved at the time. And this one I've seen around. I've never had anyone directly recommend it to me, which is kind of rare for a horror book to exist and have nobody have mentioned it to me. So I don't really know what it, I think it's about a serial killer. Isn't that like the thing he does? 17-year-old Brett is a senior at the exclusive Buckley Prep School when a new student arrives with a mysterious past. Robert Mallory is bright, handsome, charismatic, and shielding a secret from Brett and his friends, even as Robert becomes a part of their tightly knit circle. Brett's obsession with Robert is equaled by his increasingly unsettled preoccupation with the Trawler, a serial killer on the loose who seems to be drawing even closer to Brett and his friends, taunting them, and Brett in particular, with grotesque threats and horrific, sharply local acts of violence. The coincidences are uncanny, but they're also filtered through the imagination of a teenager whose gifts for constructing narrative from the filaments of his own life are about to make him one of the most explosive literary sensations of his generation. Wait, isn't that what happened with him with American Psycho? Okay, this is interesting, but I also want to see how this one goes. So yeah, I'll update you when I've read the first. Let me actually make a plan. I want to get a good way into both of them. I'm going to read the first 50 pages of Howl because that's the first 3 chapters. And the first 3 chapters of this is 73 pages. So I'm going to do that. I feel like that's a good amount into both books that I can make a decision. The sun is setting. I have waited long enough to update you. I don't want to read either of these. I fear I have done this video wrongly. Perhaps I should have vetted the picks before telling you about them. So then it was just like a fun video rather than a lengthy time actually picking my TBR. But I think I need to start from square one. I don't know what to say. I just don't want to read either of these. And I don't think pushing myself through and probably like giving either one of these a 3 by the end is the way that I want the video to go. Though yes, these are books more mentioned by Aries than anything else, I didn't take into account the actual people and their taste who mention these books. Because if we take a look at the people who had these on their lists, the rest of their lists also include books that I hate. So we've already proven the fact that all Aries don't have things in common. Even though I love so many books that other Aries love, I also hate books that other Aries love. So I think I needed to curate this a little bit more. I don't even know what to say about this. Like that was a long 70 pages and it's dull and it's dry, and I bet it gets good and I bet I would like it just fine by the end. Some books I start and I think I'm not gonna like and then I do, but I can't push myself through this right now. I can't do it. And Howl's Moving Castle is fine. It's like light and fun, and we're following her as she goes to the castle, which we just got to the castle and I don't care. I'm so sorry. I don't care. And people warned me about both of these. And so I concede. I admit I've done things wrong. Let's start over. How about this? What I'm gonna do is go on the list. Take the 100, I have exactly 100 Aries on the spreadsheet. Here is a representation of the zodiac signs that were more and less represented. I'm going to take the 100 Aries and I'm going to remove anyone who has listed multiple books that I didn't like. So then we can curate it a little bit better. So give me one sec. Okay, we still have books that were mentioned like 3 times. So it's not horrible, our options. The choices are A Study in Drowning, like, what? I never thought I'd read another Ava Reid. Children of Time, which is interesting. I think that's also very long, just for the summer, which I don't want to read. The Ballad of Never After, which I think is another YA. Oh gosh, Aries, what are we up to? And Kim Ji-young, Born 1982, which I believe is a book about a woman really struggling with early motherhood. So what do Aries really like in books? Let's remind ourselves. They love stories with a competitive edge or with an underdog protagonist who fights their way to the top. It's hard to hate an Aries, even if they get themselves into some messy situations. They're just so excited and happy to be here. Me right now. Aries thrive in careers with clear goals and plenty of individual recognition and make great leaders. Perhaps Kim Ji-young could be good because it's about her like having to leave her career to be a stay-at-home mom when she would rather be thriving in a workplace. Maybe she's an Aries. I think I'll just like find the audiobook of that one. I cannot tell you how long I have been like waiting and planning for this video to get all the books to arrive before I started filming, and now I'm gonna read a book that I don't have a physical copy of. Is there an audiobook? Say yes. Yes? Okay, I'll listen to the first couple chapters and I'll get back to you. I'm having another classic Kayla psychic moment. Kim Ji-young, born 1982. Alternate title, Kim Ji-young, born April 1st, 1982. She is an Aries. She's literally an Aries. You can't make these things up. Thank you to my fellow Aries, Brianna, Yasmin, and Marissa for mentioning this one. These are some of the other books that they mentioned as their favorites. So they're also some of my favorites, and I feel like I am in good company. The book is not solely about motherhood. In fact, it was just at this point the first scene, and now I've been reading pages and pages of her childhood. And we're following her, you know, being in a family who really wanted to have a boy and had a bunch of girls and doesn't treat them as well as the boy. And her mother has a lot of talents and skills and interests outside of being a mother, but she never really gets the opportunity to take her art to the next level and really develop a fun career. I like it so far. The one scene we got with her husband, she was like speaking about something from a dead person's perspective, like as if she was being possessed by a ghost. And it was like a conversation that her husband had with a woman back in like high school or college, and that his current wife couldn't have possibly known they ever had this conversation. So he's like, that was so fucking weird. But then the scene ended really swiftly and we went to her childhood. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued for sure. I'm glad I switched it up. Like, this first couple chapters has already been better than the two that I read previously. I went to the library so I could grab myself a physical copy and hold it up for you and read a little bit physically, because I wasn't sure if the audiobook was why I wasn't totally loving it. But physically it was pretty much the same. And I'm giving it a 3. I think I can talk about why Aries would like to read a book like this, but I don't think that there is evidence of why an Aries would like the book. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of books that I am interested in, and I think certain groups of people are interested in equally. But as far as actually enjoying the books and the way that they're written and the way the topics that we're interested in are actually handled in the text, that, like, it's not really clear why I didn't love it compared to other Aries, I guess. Where I struggled with this is the pitch of it being about this woman who like voices other women. That wasn't the plot. Like, that was not what the story was about at all. So my initial intrigue dissipated pretty quickly, but the pitch on the back isn't that. It's just about how she is going through different moments in life and is struggling. How her mother wanted a boy, how her father blames her when she's harassed, how she's overlooked for promotions, how at every single turn we're exploring South Korean culture, but also just how women are treated, how misogyny functions, and how women are looked over and women are paid less and women have such high expectations on them, and are treated poorly even when put into the positions where they're supposed to be. It's like you're never doing anything right. This whole thing felt like that one speech in the Barbie movie, and I think it was a little too on the nose. When a book is this short, I think I look for some ambiguity, some moments for me to connect some dots and come away with questions that I can then ponder. But instead, it just told you exactly how the world works and how it's not good. And we follow one woman who is having difficulty, and then the book is over. Her issues are completely valid and they're relatable, but this read like an essay. There were so many stats, which is so valuable, especially if you are exploring a culture you don't know anything about. But I think at this point I've read too many books like this, that it didn't offer me anything particularly different or interesting as far as the points it wanted to get across and the plot. So I'm leaving it at a 3 because this book is not bad. Like, I respect everything this book had to say, and I get why other people definitely enjoy it. Like, maybe if I read it 5 years ago, I would rate it a little bit higher. The average rating totally makes sense. I don't think there's one zodiac sign who like would like this more than another. It didn't perfectly match my taste, but that's totally fine. And as far as my bingo board goes, I can do my sun sign and an author that I've never read from before. And I guess I'll put something on the free space because I have gotten the free space in the middle. And I'll see you next time I read something. I came down to the beach today to start my next read. I'm going to read the first chapter of 3 things because I really want to make sure I get my enneagram correct. I want to read the right thing that's going to go really well. One thing that was mentioned, I think it was only 2 times, but it's Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars. This is by Kai Cheng Tom. I've read a poem by this author in Queer Little Nightmares. I really hope you can hear me over this wind. I also have No Longer Human that was mentioned. It was either 2 or 3 times. This is on the spreadsheet a little bit more overall than this one, but they were both most recommended of any of the numbers by Enneagram 8s. And then the last one is called Sorrow and Bliss. And looking at the cover, this one like was not at my local bookstore, not at the library. I can't get access to it anywhere, so I'm gonna have to buy the audiobook or the ebook. I have intentionally avoided the types of books that look like this, that are just like an exhausted woman laying on a bed or leaning against a wall, just looking otherwise uninterested in life. But I also really do want to interrogate why I think type 8 specifically like that one, because it was the most mentioned. But I'm gonna try the first chapter of all 3 of them and we're gonna pick one. I'm so scared to make the wrong decision. I don't want to make it. This one, I feel like objectively is the most type 8, but I've never been one for like the girl gang thing, and I get why I should be. I don't know if I'm really in the mood for like a vigilante book right now. It's interestingly written. It's like surrealist, kind of feels like autofiction, like a fake memoir, but also it feels like it's a good amount of like the real author's memoir. And it kicks off with them like saving some mermaids from a beach, or like getting in touch with the mermaid community. I don't know, it's also like a mix of, there's like narrative and there's kind of poetry, and there's a mix of stuff which would keep it interesting. I'm sure it's going to be a fast read. I also think this would be a fast read, but this seems really heavy. We're following a character who isn't seen as human, feels incapable of understanding other humans, and he's very alienated. There's a suicide attempt, and I don't know. But then Sorrow and Bliss seems like it's going to be a difficult read too, just the initial pitch of it, but I did like the author's writing the best. I got into it easier. So I think Sorrow and Bliss is my pick, which I feel good about because one of the prompts, okay, let's talk about the bingo board really quickly. There are a couple prompts I'm absolutely not going to hit. I haven't hit so far, and I'm not going to in this capacity. So there's only actually a couple bingos that I can make, and this whole thing is not about getting a bingo, but of course I want a bingo. And in order to get a bingo, I can only go in 2 different directions. And one of them seems easier than the other because it includes reading my Enneagram wing. Basically, you have an Enneagram number, mine's an 8, so I would be an 8 wing 9 or an 8 wing 7, depending on which direction I went. And I know some people really wanted to lean into their Enneagram for the bingo, and some people really wanted to lean into the astrology, so I made one thing that was entirely about, you know, your rising sign and your moon sign and your Venus. And the diagonal has reading like your Enneagram wing. And Sorrow and Bliss is actually one that showed up a lot in Enneagram 7s. Enneagram 7s were one of the least represented numbers. So even though it was also on type 8s and I'm reading it because I'm a type 8 and it was featured on type 8s, the number of people who mentioned it as a type 7 percentage-wise is higher because there was less type 7s. I've made a recommendation board for every single Enneagram. My channel members all have access to those, and that's what's helping them get through the bingo board and the reading challenge this month. So Sorrow and Bliss kind of fits for my Enneagram 8, but it also fits for Enneagram 7. And what I said before is I think Enneagram 7s like unlikable characters more so than any other. I don't know if I said that to you or if I said that in like the deep dive video that I did for the besties, but that's what I expect from that character. And I think if anyone can like it, maybe it's me. There was actually somebody who was an 8-wing 7 who put it on their favorites, and I'm an 8-wing 7, like I said. So it all aligns properly, and I want it to go well so I don't regret this decision. The sun is setting, and I must admit defeat. I gave it a good effort. I got 40% of the way through Sorrow and Bliss. It's taken me hours. This character is not unlikable. In fact, she is so loved. And I think the story is nice, and I feel like I would give it 3 stars by the end, and I would recommend it. She's dealing with a mental health crisis and not really knowing what is wrong with her per se, and she's struggling, and everyone around her sees her struggling, and they're frustrated, but they're frustrated for her. It's not that she's doing anything to be unlikable. She's a very sympathetic character, and I feel like the result will be nice, you know? Right now she's in the sorrow, eventually she'll be in the bliss. I just like, I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it. And I went back to both of the other books I started, and I read a couple more chapters of each, and I was like, I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood for these right now. And I think that this little mini slump within the challenge is punishment, because I lied to you. Those books that I've been reading, yes, they had 2 or 3 mentions. They are not the most mentioned book, though. In the 8's list, there is a book that was mentioned 4 times that I didn't want to read, so I just didn't tell you about it. So instead of persevering with the books I've already started, there's like 3 hours left in my day. Can I get through an entire classic in that time? I'm gonna have to. It's Wuthering Heights. This book gets recommended to me like once in a while, and I always thought of it as a really, really long one that was going to be intimidating. I don't think it's actually that long, but I don't own it. I just looked through my closet of all of my classics that I've shoved in there, and I don't have it, but it's at like every single bookstore. So while I'm out tomorrow, I could grab it so I can like have it in my stack at the end of the month like I like. But in the meantime, I am going to start the audiobook. Will I complete it today? I don't know. That is supposed to be how this video works, a book a day, but I'm just gonna go for it. Maybe it'll be my new favorite classic. The other classics mentioned in the Type 8's lists are also some of my favorites. Here's the thing though, I have to admit that I don't know anything about it. I don't know what Wuthering Heights is. I know Heathcliff, is that his name? And I know Catherine, I wanna say Catherine, and they're in love, I think. It's romantic. Probably. I think the only reason that I've heard of Wuthering Heights is when it gets referenced by other like shows or books. Without reading the first couple chapters, this is what I have dedicated my time to. And if I know for a fact I'm going to read it, then I can't pull out. I can't give up. I can't chicken out. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll update you at some point. Okay, so I am quite a few chapters in. I'm currently picking up my sweet baby boy from work. And I must admit, I don't know what's happening in the story. What we are following is a man who's like a landlord, and he's staying at the house of this man. The narrator for the audiobook is a woman. And so I went the first couple chapters thinking we were reading from a woman's perspective, and this was the woman who was going to get involved with this man. But I was like, oh, he's like mean, and she's a landlord. The character's perspective we were in, who was like in love with this woman or something. And I was like, this is gay? What the fuck are we talking about? This came out in like the 1810s. I thought it was this woman who like didn't want to walk home alone and find their way back in the dark, and nobody seemed to really care. And I was like, wouldn't they like want to give the proper, oh my god, the moon is so fucking beautiful. What the fuck? Look at it like peeking right in the middle of these clouds. Okay, well, whatever you're seeing isn't doing justice. Like we're on top of the lake. This is so beautiful. Anyways, a couple chapters in, I realized we're actually reading from the perspective of a man. And so everything starts to make sense in the context. But he stays in this room of the house where he's not supposed to stay. I can't get over this moon. I want to get a good picture of it. He's not supposed to stay because the man, Heathcliff, is like angry or something. And he's like, you can't stay here. But then someone sneaks him up to like one of the bedrooms, and he does stay. And while he's in there, he like sees the ghost of this woman, and then Heathcliff gets all like frantic because somebody saw the ghost. So it's like, does he also see the ghost? And then he found all of these like diaries, journals from Catherine. So now I'm like, are her journals gonna start telling the story that we're supposed to, or is it more about this man and his whole business? Like, I don't know what really, I need to look up some things about the book, I think, to really get a grasp of what's happening. I also think I need to grab the physical copy tomorrow, so I'm definitely not going to finish it today. But a book I read and loved earlier this year, The Favorites by Lane Fargo, was supposedly inspired by Wuthering Heights, and I remember saying that like in my pitch of it, even though I didn't even know what that meant. And I'm wondering now if it wasn't just like the dynamic between the two that was how it was like inspired by it, because we are getting like the two characters now in Wuthering Heights, and one of them, her family like brought in Heathcliff into the family, and he's like poor and lesser. Her dad just like showed up with him one day in the family, and I was like, that's obviously where The Favorites has something in alignment, but also maybe because The Favorites is told from a bunch of different perspectives and it's kind of like a documentary, maybe that's also Wuthering Heights. I don't know if it's going to continue to be kind of like journal entries, or if we are fully in the narrative now. I feel a little bit lost, but the writing is fine. Like, I'm following the writing. It's just the plot. I don't know. I feel like I can't grab hold of it. There were so many editions of Wuthering Heights to choose from at the bookstore. I thought I committed to one, but then I eventually saw this one that was a little bit further away, so I didn't notice it right away, and I figured this was the right one to buy because this is the entire collection that I own with the stripy spines. I have like 20 of them in my closet, so I figured I would just grab this one. This is how far into it I am now, and what I'll say is when I bought the book, I was this far in, and I thought, this is gonna be a book I love. Like, this is gonna be at least a 4-star. I've heard of Heathcliff as a character, so I just thought he was this like, you know, brooding love interest in a classic book that everybody loves because I've like heard his name before. And in the first half, I was like, okay, I don't love him, but I can see his passion, and I can't wait to see where this journey goes, and how like romantic and incredible he becomes. Nope. The opposite. He's fucked up. He's not the man I thought I was going to read about, and this is not about the relationship that I thought it was about. Where in fact, years and years later, following, in the first half, we were following like a love triangle, and now once again, we have this dynamic between different people related to the people in the first half. And I don't know how I feel about any of this. I'm waiting to get attached to all of the characters, and then maybe I'll start loving it. I have 100 pages to go. Once again, I abandoned my original TBR and then switched to something that I don't know if I'm going to like any more than the ones I was reading. What's fun though is this is on my scratch off poster. So the second one is going to be scratched off in this video. As far as my bingo board, I'm not going to hit a bingo by the end, and I just have to accept the fact that switching to Wuthering Heights means I'm not going to accomplish that. I am going to check off reading outside because I've done that, and Wuthering Heights is actually my Venus sign. It was one of the books I recommended to my Venus sign people, which is Aquarius, and then it fits for my enneagram. I think maybe type 8s could like this because it's unlikable characters, because it's about revenge, and that's something that type 8s are often into. And then the rest of the books in the video, I'm gonna do an author I've read from before, Becky Chambers. Favorite in common is like the whole goal of like any of these, so that one's easy. Someone with the Same Job, obviously. And then my bonus one that I've talked about, the bonus video, actually is recommended for my rising sign. So that's 14 out of 25 for the bingo that I'm going to complete. Actually make it 15 because I think every single book I'm reading in this video is a favorite of somebody who's 35, and so I can also tick off the one about reading favorites of people who are the exact same age as me. That's my update for now, and I'll let you know my final rating in just a sec.
What are we filming? What are you filming?
You want to review this for them? Don't mind the tears on my shirt. This is gonna be a 3.5, and I unfortunately don't really have any thoughts to share about it. I didn't dislike it. I looked at Goodreads and there's some people who are like really mad about this book. Like me, they went into it thinking it was going to be romantic. And they're just like, how could anybody like a book about these dislikable people? And then there's people who give it 5 stars and they're like, this is the most incredible thing. I'm just not obviously in either camp. It was just like a fine read. I think I enjoy reading about complex characters. It's a story of selfishness and pain and harm. And yeah, like nobody's really that redeemable, and they're not supposed to be. So in that, it's a success. I just like didn't really have any feelings at the end of the day about how it was written or the setting or the characters. I was just reading it and it was fine. It gave me more context for a book I really enjoyed. So there's that. And interestingly, if I had read this before that, I think it would have spoiled some of the elements that I really liked about the favorites. So that's all interesting to know. I have another classic to add to my collection that I've actually read. We'll scratch it off and move on to the next. Good morning. I am wearing my NASA shirt today because we're in space. I'm reading To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is my third Becky Chambers. I've given her 4 stars both times previously, and I'm 50 pages in, and I decided to stop here because I need to go buy a physical copy. I think this is really a book for me. It took me a minute to get into it and like figure out what we were doing, and I've realized it's split into 4 parts, and we have this space crew. There's 4 of them, and they're each kind of responsible for a different thing. It's like the person piloting the flight, the person who's the engineer, and they all are doing research. They're visiting all of these planets that are orbiting a different sun, dwarf planets, and they're going to visit 4 of them. And so the book is split into 4 different places. We're about to go to Mirabilis, and I want to highlight stuff. Like I really like the way that it's constructed and written, and the way that certain lists are being made is making me think this is why people who deal with a lot of data and like marketing, designing in an organization sense and like making things look good and making things make sense. Maybe that's why we all like, I mean, this is a pretty popular one on the list, but maybe that's why we all like it, because our main character, Ariadne, is making lists, and it's very structured, like all the bacteria that they're encountering and how they're classified, but it's also not bogging down the book, which I just already think is very impressive for how short this is. You being able to take the time to explain the processes going on within this spacecraft and what you're doing on the planet is just pretty excellent. There was a list at one point of all of the items that they were taking on this trip. And I feel like another author would just be like, okay, this isn't the most important part. Like, let's get to know the worlds that we're visiting and all of the characters who are on this trip and their relationships and stuff. But the author is giving us that, but also taking the time for lists and explanations. And that's giving a cozy sense. It's like how some people play those games that are like unpacking your college dorm or whatever, where just the organization is what makes something comfortable and soothing. There's also this element of them talking about the fact that they're, 100+ years in the future, but there still remain things that AI technology will never be able to like do. The human beings will never be able to be replaced in these certain facets of life. And I think that that is a comforting thing too. She really does cozy sci-fi so well. It's what she's known for. So I'm gonna head out. It is new book day. It's a Tuesday, so new books are out at the bookstore, and I'm gonna run out, grab some new things, and also grab myself my own copy of this. So like I said in the intro, the people that I grabbed for this section and their careers were people who are in the arts. I pulled people who do marketing. There's quite a few marketing people, design, coding, and then I grabbed data analysts. A lot of what I do for small businesses is data analysis. A lot of marketing is analyzing data and putting together marketing plans for businesses. And I try to organize stuff and pull sales and like where they might succeed. And I figured like computery people all have a kind of similar vibe. And there was a selection of books that was mentioned a lot. Now, of course, a lot of these are on the top 30 to begin with. So like, it's not just this group of people who love these books, but there are some books here that were mentioned a lot by this specific group. And there was plenty of sci-fi. So I think it's interesting that this one's on here. And I'm having a difficult time thinking like, do I talk in this moment about why I think this group of people likes this, or just why I'm liking it, or the actual plot of the book. I should talk about the plot of the book. So it is about the group of people and they're on these missions. We have now completed the second mission halfway through the book. Again, I just love the instructions of it all. There was a moment where we learned about the sterilization protocol coming back into the ship and going out of the ship. And I loved that. They're very isolated. They're like 15 years behind in communication with planet Earth. So when they're getting communications, it's very late. When they're sending communications, like they are alone. They need to be fully self-sufficient. What's interestingly discussed in this section was them getting to kind of choose if they wanted to engage with the news or not. Perhaps the news was coming through and they were uncertain about how the planet was running and how things were going. And there was no reason for them to read the news absolutely every single day, but it is a part of their just routine. But one day they were like, what if I don't? What if I didn't read the news today? It's like everything would probably be just fine. It's 15 years in the past, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And that's another cozy element of what Becky Chambers is doing, because that is an escapist thing I think a lot of us would like to do. We know how important it is to be informed and aware, but wouldn't it be so nice if we didn't have to? If we didn't have to know what was going on in the world. And some people do live in ignorance like that, but everything going on in the world is still going to impact you. And in this way, what's currently going on is not impacting them because it's so far in the past. It's hammering home how isolated they truly are. So that's where we're at in the plot. I'll read another one of their trips and then it'll be over. It's gonna be over so fast, and I don't want to jump the gun, but I think this could be a 5. Tell me why the end of chapter 3 or section 3 just had me tearing up. What is happening? I didn't think that was the feelings this book was going to evoke from me. You really get the connection between these 4 people, and I just think this book is so impressive. I think it's so impressive how Becky Chambers is navigating all of these things in a novella. She's giving us backstory. She's giving us detail about how they're collecting information about these creatures on these planets, but also giving us commentary on the world and life. We're not really getting these impactful moments between characters, but we're getting a sense of their connection so subtly. It's like Ariadne will go, she'll be like, okay, I have to go collect all 3 of the other people to have a conversation about something. So she'll go to one person's room and she will like, she grabs his arm and pulls him into the place they need to talk. Then she goes to the other person's room and gently knocks on the door and whispers as she enters. Then she goes to the other door, and it's like just based on how she's interacting with them differently, you get a sense of how they are different as characters. Like, it's genius. And then we're also not bogged down with conversations that could be in here easily. Like, they have to make a decision, and as a crew, they have to come to a consensus every single time. So when that moment arises, she goes, okay, we have to have a consensus. I'm gonna go have she tells the other 2, I'm gonna go have a discussion with this person. And then the next scene is them doing the thing they were planning on doing. So you already know the discussion went well, and you don't actually need to have it in the book. There's so much just heavily implied. And then even they're having conversations about the ethics of engaging with these creatures and who they could potentially be harming. They're infiltrating this land, right? Like they don't have any ownership over it, and they've made an agreement to kind of do no harm. Like they just come in, they want to do their research, and they want to leave. They don't want to negatively or positively, they don't want to leave any impact behind. But it's not like pages of that was spelled out to us. We got that sense after just one quick conversation. And then somehow the end of chapter 3 out of nowhere got really heavy, but it almost felt inevitable. And then they kind of got over it very quickly as well. There's a lot of time passing and they're doing these different trips, but it still feels so cohesive. And oh my God, I love it. I would never again be the Ariadne who never left Earth, just as I would never again be the Ariadne who had never left her parents' home, who had never bled, who had yet learned to walk. A moth was a caterpillar once, but it no longer is a caterpillar. It cannot break itself back down, cannot metamorphose in reverse. To try and eat leaves again would mean starvation. Crawling back into the husk would provide no shelter. It is a paradox, the impossibility of reclaiming that which lies behind, housed within a form comprised entirely of the repurposed pieces of that same past. We exist where we begin, yet to remain there is death. This book was also mentioned by a good amount of type 8s. Like I could have chosen it for the enneagram or the career prompt. And I think 8s, there's something in here about her being trusted with this job and not being micromanaged that I think as a type 8 is a reason that I really love it. Is there's this sense of like being put on a mission. There's people who are in charge of you, and type 8s really resist control, but I also like being able to trust the people who are in charge. Like I don't always have to be the one in charge. I just have to believe in the people who are. And her being entrusted with like being intelligent and knowing what she's doing and having this crew around her who is also intelligent and everybody is performing their role properly, like that is a very satisfying feeling in a book. There are so many more pages that I thought was the story, but they're like acknowledgements and extra content, a little like interview, and a piece of The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I've already read. So the actual story ended after just 134 pages, and I think it did everything flawlessly. This is such a fantastic feeling. I don't even need to sit and ponder it. Like not only am I certain this is a 5-star, but this is my favorite book of the year so far. I'm so happy. I'm so glad people put this on my radar. I remember seeing it quite a few times when I was looking through the spreadsheet, and I think when I was doing like the guessing stuff, it was popping up a few times. I just think this handled space travel with so much care and so much thought. Like it discussed the ethics of space travel. It talked about respecting the people who came before and the people who will come after, trying to set up not just our planet but other planets for success for any creatures or any humans in the future, and like how it's not just about these 4 and how they got there, it's about everybody who built them up to get here. And then not everything happened perfectly. There were little mistakes along the way, and it was just a very human book, but it didn't ever get extremely dark or difficult. There was never tension between the group, which was huge. I could tell you literally every single plot point of this book and it wouldn't ruin the book, because the point is the feeling. And it's not character driven because you don't get to know these characters extremely well, but what you get to know is their dynamic and the way they feel about each other, and you can just tell that they have been on this journey. They've been working together for so long, and they're such like what is it, a well-oiled machine. Perfect amount of description, the perfect amount of reflecting on life and how to take care of people. This was so good. So it's time for the last book. I'm reading Anxious People. This is an author that I've read from before. I liked Beartown not as much as like everybody else. And then The Way Home Gets Longer and Longer made me sob, of course. So I'm interested in this one, but I actually don't know the plot. I'm hanging out with my parents. How lovely is the deck, to keep my grandma company while they're out of town just for the day. Today was the worst day. Liam was supposed to have a baseball game and we had to leave before it started because he had a medical emergency. So we've been in the ER for the last 6 hours, and now I don't know, I just had to pull him out of summer hockey because yeah, his lungs just can't handle it. And so he's feeling better now, but I don't know about the upcoming care plan for him. I might end up going to Vancouver for some stuff, but anyway, now I'm gonna read a book about anxious people. Yeah, I'm gonna read a book about anxious people. I searched basically my favorite books on the spreadsheet, and I picked people who had my favorite books listed, like Bunny and Middle Game and The Raven Cycle and things like that. That's how I started to narrow it down. And then I made sure like nobody had anything I hated on their list, and that they had at least 15 books that I've read and enjoyed. So I feel really good about this list. And considering how many horror books I was searching through and like how many people have the horror books, it wasn't a horror book that I ended up reading for the most popular. It was Anxious People. So that gives me hope that it's going to be really good. Do you want to see the kitty cat? Kitty, 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 kitty. Come here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Does she want to be on camera? Come on, kitty, kitty. This is Skitty. She's beautiful. I didn't read too much yesterday. I was not in the mind space to read. Today, I have been reading Anxious People, and this is exactly what I needed, and I could not have told you that beforehand because I embarrassingly did not know what this one was about either. I've seen it around, like I know it's beloved, I've known that, but I've never looked into it. I would have assumed it was something like Normal People. There's two people on the cover, and they have this connection, they find comfort in each other, they feel seen by each other, then they feel very anxious. What it's actually about is a very fun premise. This is very funny. And I find that a lot of books, I don't know if this is like pitched as humor. I'm only, 100 pages in, so maybe it goes back and forth between the tones. Well, I guess there is like a mix of tones because there's definitely heaviness talked about, but it feels kind of darkly humorous. And a lot of books that pitch themselves as funny, I don't find funny. Like, we don't have the same sense of humor, me in the book. But in this case, I'm having such a good time reading it. So if you somehow don't know what it's about, my quick pitch is, I haven't actually read the synopsis, but it's about a bank robber who accidentally creates a hostage situation at a nearby apartment building. There's an apartment ready to be sold, and we follow all of the hostages in that scenario who were there to like look at the apartment, maybe buy it, and we follow them like before the incident, how they all know each other, how they're connected. That's been really fun, seeing how they're all linked. And then through the hostage situation. And then afterwards, we're also reading interviews from the people, and the police are talking about like what happened and tell us what you know about the bank robber and blah, blah, blah. It's definitely got a quirky cast. It's got a kind of tongue-in-cheek vibe. I don't know how much would be a spoiler from here on. So what I'll just tell you is like one funny scene, which is the robber doesn't really know what he's doing, and none of the people really know what's going on, and it's all very chaotic. And one of the men who is trying to buy the place is trying to negotiate with the hostage taker, the burglar, the robber, the criminal of the story. And he's like, oh, why don't you just like let everyone else free? Like, you should just be a good person and I'll stay behind and I'll be the one. And then the other people clock that he only wants to be the one left behind because he wants to be alone with the realtor, who's also one of the hostages, so he can secure the apartment because they all want to buy it and he wants to get his foot in the door. I'm having a nice time. When I thought this would be a book full of anxiety, which like it is because these people are very high strung a lot of times, it's actually a fun book as opposed to something heavy, which is not what I was expecting. So this is, I think, a good read for me to be experiencing today, and I'll check in with you maybe like halfway through. No matter how much money anyone earns, they still lie awake at the end of the month worrying about money. Everyone looks at what their neighbors have and wonder, how can they afford that? Because everyone is living beyond their means. So not even really rich people ever feel really rich, because in the end, the only thing you can buy is a more expensive version of something you've already got. Yes. Yes, I am lying in a pile of my clean laundry. Well, my friends, I've done it. I've completed the book, I've completed the week, I've completed the video. And I didn't complete a bingo. Can you believe it? I should have made the bingo board after I planned what I was going to read myself so I could set it up for myself to succeed. My final rating for Anxious People is it's a 3.5. It's a 3.5. When I look at a bunch of my friends on Goodreads, like everybody loves this. The few of my friends who gave it a 4 instead of a 5 said that the beginning really dragged for them and then the book really won them over by the end. I disagree so much. Like, the premise hooked me from the very beginning and I was really intrigued. And then it just went on for so long and I feel like it was really dragged out. It could have lost 100 pages in my opinion, and it could have given the same vibes. I understand people really connecting with this and feeling seen and feeling like the representation just of humanity is so good, but I started to feel like it was getting a little bit cheesy, and there was a lot of one-liners that were just like every single character has to have a moment where they're like, and this is how I feel and everything is beautiful. From the book's perspective and the writing, it was acknowledging that all of these people are stupid and they make stupid decisions, and so it was fun and then it was wholesome, and I don't think those two things matched up perfectly for my reading tastes. I respect this. I can look at it objectively and say I understand why my friends like it, but I'm so bummed that this of all of them should have been the one that really worked for me, because there was not a single book in the list of like 1,000 books that I pulled from that I didn't love. Like, I loved everything listed by 60 people, and then their most agreed upon opinion was a book that I thought was just okay. How does that happen to me? I should have gone against my instincts, and I should have pulled like a horror or something that was a little riskier, but this just seemed like there was no way I wouldn't like it, and I did like it. So it's not like I had a flop in this entire video, and I think that is a success, that everything went well. And so I can trust people with my same zodiac sign or enneagram or career or taste. It is factual that I will like the books. No, I don't know the takeaway. The takeaway is I like looking at stats. I like connecting with the besties. I like giving you a vlog full of things that I might not have otherwise read. And like I said, there is a spin-off vlog where I read one more thing. So besties, the link will be down below. I'll see you over there. Thank you so much for watching. Next time I'll see you will be probably for Summerween. So it might be like a week and a half from now. And I hope you'll be there, because I'll be there. Bye!